The front of the belt. So this is the original front of the belt, and I've piled its fringe on top of itself so that I could just see the outline of the base of the front. And I drew the outline onto this interfacing that I've laid it on top of, and I added the extra length of the belt that I needed. This dotted line is where I need the seam to be, and this tab here is where I'm going to have the front of the belt overlap the back of the belt. And that's where you get this measurement here. It's meant to dovetail right into the back of the belt and look like a smooth transition from the front to the back. And yeah, so I took a measuring tape and measured how long I needed that length to be from the dotted line to the dotted line, and I centered my front of the belt panel onto it and onto the middle of that measurement and drew it out. And I used magic marker, and this is what it looks like. So if I wanted to do an identical front of the belt to the original design, I would just cut this out, cover it in fabric, and bead it. I'm not sure that I will, though. I'm not entirely certain that I want to keep these little curlicues. I'm going to have to play with it and see what I want to do. And also, an interesting thing about this design of the front of the belt is that this curvy line is meant to mimic the, it's meant to go along with the embellishment inside the belt. So this bump here, it has to do with this spiral here, and this bump there has to do with this spiral here. So what I'm probably going to do is mark on my interfacing where I want all of my embellishments to go, and that will affect where my top of the belt edge is going to be, because if I do slightly different embellishments in different places, I want that to be mirrored in the shape of the belt. It looks really cool when it all flows, and I'm definitely going to have to make that decision before I cut it out. Yeah, and then of course here's how far I've gotten with the back of the belt. Looks pretty good. I haven't put on the fringe on the bottom yet. I've noticed online on a lot of different Bellas, and even on the example, this one that I had, there was sort of like a zigzag pattern with the bottom of the fringe. It wasn't consistent on this particular costume. Some of it was all the same length, and then in the very back it had a zigzag pattern, but I think I'm actually going to do a zigzag pattern all throughout the back. And what this does is it kind of blends where the fringe and the trumpet skirt you would wear under it kind of meet. So it's not so much of a straight line of where the end of the fringe is. And I think that's cool. And what I'm probably going to do is mark with straight pins where I want each of my zigzag points to be. I'll measure them out, make them all equally spaced, put in the longest ones and measure those lengths, and then fill them in between in sort of a very even, orderly fashion. And I'll do the same thing when I do the fringe and the thing. And I brought out my gold belt because I wanted to sort of talk about ergonomics. I want to talk about the mechanisms of your hips. So your pelvis is pretty much directly behind where this belt is, and your hip joint is, where the leg comes up is going to be right under this belt. So it's incredibly important that you don't make your belt too wide this way, the front of your belt too wide this way, to interfere with the movement of your leg. So that's just something to keep in mind. What you can do is, cut out the shape you want in interfacing and hold it up to yourself in the mirror and lift one of your legs and make sure that there's enough room over your hip joint to make sure that you can lift your knee without interference from the belt. Okay.